Thank you for having me, and I'm happy to be here to talk a little bit about our journey as we went into mapping. And as we get started, hold on. I'm going to use my teacher voice. I'm going to hand out some cards. Just take one. And as I'm talking, I'm going to give you some direction about what I'd like you to do in terms of writing on the cards. So if you'll just take one, pass them along. Thank you. And it follows along with the spirit of mapping and development. If you'll click. So just to take a quick pulse of the room, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 5, how many of you would put yourself in the 1 to 5 area of being comfortable and understanding program mapping and possibly about what you're supposed to be doing today? Okay, so I have some 1 to 5ers, okay? Rookies, semi-rookies, moving towards the non-rookie side of being an experienced veteran with program mapping. Anybody going to be a veteran? Okay, good. I have a few veterans here. Next slide. So it gives me a little idea of any spins or tweaks and anticipatory questions. As we go through this, I'll be around for most of the day today, so if there's other little particular questions, feel free to pull me aside and I can share an experience. I like to do well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Because as Cassie said, and we all say, this is Bakersfield College's experience, but it won't be your experience. But what you can take from is, as some of us have been in this process since 2013-ish, that we have learned some things along the way that become universal. But our students aren't the same, our faculty aren't the same, and then there are the barriers are not the same. So there's nuances that will change where you go on this journey and this path. So I look at guided pathways as just what it says, it's a path. And I see myself as being one of those trailblazers. So what does that mean? I'm at the front. And being at the front, if you are a trailblazer, that also means I have to take some risk. And as you do this work, there is a component where you have to be comfortable, and at the end I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that, some characteristics that you want to develop that will help you be that trailblazer. Okay? And if you don't want to be a trailblazer, as Cassie mentioned, there's some people along the sign that are kind of just like helping lay down the grass a little bit better for those that come behind us. And that's okay too, because we're all valuable in the work that we do. So my objective is to look at and discuss program mapping in the context of 3 things. Keep it simple. The why, the what, and the how. And I have to look because I'll forget. The why, the what, and the how. So on your card, as I go through my presentation, I'd like you to think of your why. So on the front side, you're going to answer these questions. Even as you go through the day, you may not have them all answered, but I hope that at the end of the day, you will know your why, you will know your what, and you will know your how. And then on the back, I want you to be jotting down ideas, questions. Ooh, we want to do that. Ooh, we want to follow up with that. Other things that can help guide the work, okay? So as I go through my why, or Bakersfield College's why, I want you also to think about the take on the why, the what, and the how can be personal. It can be outside of maybe the work group in which you're working. It can be my why. As she talked about the spark, what was the spark that got you here today? What was the thing that got you like, this is totally crazy? I cannot believe and we have to take ownership, we have done this to our students. And what was that spark? What was your why? So at Bakersfield College, our why, next slide please, is we looked at the data and tried to make data-informed decisions, but the data showed some things that I think are characteristic amongst all of us. Number 1, there are barriers. Number 2, we are doing things to our students unintentionally. And so through my presentation, I'm trying to just use pictures, and your pictures will be interpreted differently. So you might have a different perspective. So what we saw was some students saw that road sign. Remember, this is a pathway, kind of a little theme. And they saw this road sign of the road was closed. And I see that as the barriers. So our why was, what are the realities of the student experience? It taps into what Cassie was saying about, we think it happens this way, but that is not how the student experiences it. Things that you will find in your data, you need to dive into the data and know, and I'm not a data geek, but I know data geeks, so they'll tell you all the real numbers. I'll give you guesstimates. But the reality is of looking at how long does it take a student to get a 2-year degree? 10 years is inappropriate, okay? I don't care if you're going part-time and taking one class at a time. It still shouldn't take you 10 years. So informed wandering, I do like that. Do you know the consequences of what happens, not only if you choose to wander, but if you choose to change your major? How many students are financial aid literate? How many faculty are financial aid literate? So there's always an opportunity for all of us to learn interdisciplinary and learn from each other. But sometimes we give a suggestion, oh yeah, you couldn't get that class, no big deal, don't try to crash it, take something else. Not realizing that class is only offered once a semester. And now the student's here another year. Here goes a systems problem. Here goes a scheduling problem. Here goes an informational problem. So the student says, I got another year here? That road is closed. I'm changing my major because in this next year I can take 2 other classes and do something else and get a degree that's really not in the field that I want to be in, but I have a degree. And then they are working, if anybody works at Starbucks, no offense, but they're a barista. I'm a talker, so if you talk to a lot of Starbucks baristas, they have bachelor's degrees in things that they could not get a job in. And in my opinion, that's criminal because they thought it was going to work. They thought I could make some money, come to find out, it's kind of the degree, but it doesn't really lead to employment in a field where I can make a living wage. How many people want to be a child care provider? We have lots of those. I want to be a child care provider. $12 an hour. But we don't give them that extra entrepreneurial course. Now become an entrepreneur. Now you do have the benefits and you can now make as much money as you want and start to develop that spirit of being self-sufficient and an independent person. So kind of rethinking what we're saying to our students and addressing our why. So our data showed the 10-year, 2-year degree. Our data showed the number of degrees that we had that had no awards. They were on the books. So if you think about your metrics, your scorecard, like she said, it's out there. And you start to really look at it. Again, what are we doing to our students that you're taking all these courses and then you never get a degree? I got a couple of certificates along the way, and I'm working, but, so I went back to doing X because I never really finished and they didn't offer that class anymore, and then life happened. So looking at our why was looking at really specific data points that helped us begin to see the students that were seeing this road sign. Okay, next slide, please. And then our what. So when you're defining the what in the way I define the what is, what are you going to do about the why? Okay, so your what becomes, what are you going to do about it? And the how becomes, how are you going to take care of the what? So our what, we were early adopters of guided pathways, and our what, specific to mapping, we had lots of whats, but our what was to clarify. And because we were early adopters, we were part of the national project. The framework are the 4 pillars listed here, which are similar to California, but slightly different. So our pillars are clarify, enter, stay on the path, and ensure learning. So to answer the what of mapping, we went into clarify. Now, we had done onboarding work, which was entering the path, completely redesigned that. We are doing work and stay on the path, and I will reiterate what Cassie said is 2014-ish is what I'm saying where we started, 2019, and we are nowhere near perfection, and we don't anticipate to be perfect. And that's one of those trailblazer characteristics is it's okay not to be perfect, but you have to take a risk, start somewhere, try something, evaluate. There's this cycle of evaluate and start over and try again. Make change. So we decided to clarify the path, We recognized that that was necessary, and we took on the task of mapping. So what happened with our maps was along the lines of they already existed. And you may already have maps that exist, but our maps existed. Anybody take a guess where they lived? The catalog, and who used them? Counselors. Okay, any counselors in the room? All right. So do you not map with students every day? Now the old terminology was this is kind of your ed plan. But what was the ed plan? It's the map. It's the map of how you get to that declared major. And so we recognize systems issues that students declared majors never went and changed their majors when they changed the major. So what path were they on? The wrong path for the major in which they finally settled upon. So there's all these little issues that will arise as you start to dig in and try to figure out how do we clarify. And I see mapping as that clarity. Student jumps on the path, does what I call some no-harm courses. So for us, those momentum points, the math and the English. Do all degrees need it? Yeah, okay, no harm. You got a year to get those 30 units, math and English in there, a couple other GE, and maybe if opportunity arises to explore something in your path or Spark course. No harm. They've not lost time. It goes for whatever that choice might be. It goes to whatever path they may jump to. No harm. Okay, so think about that when you're structuring your interdisciplinary paths is what do we have in common in that no harm semester or year? And that gives, and what we found was that allowed faculty that were concerned about, oh no, they can only go this way and they'll never be able to wander and explore. Well, back to student voices, most students don't want to explore. So if they do, that gives them an opportunity. So we haven't taken it away. We've, I call it guided it. Because our goal is still, get out, okay? Timely, lovingly. But we want you to move forward and become a contributing member to society. Launch. Next slide. So what also informed our what was the flow of information, and we tapped upon this in that where do students get their information? How do they know how to jump on the path? How are we communicating to students? And what we found in our student focus groups were students were getting their information from each other. All right? And it's also about take that class because that instructor doesn't give you a lot of homework, okay? There's information that flows. We can't be crazy about it. We have to know that that exists, and we know that it exists, so I'm one of those trailblazers. Let's use it to our advantage. Tell the students about something and let them spread accuracy. Let them spread the word of, hey, did you know if you went here, they will help you do this. And if you can tie money or $5 gift cards to it, you know, you'll have a plethora of students. They will come. But we have to figure out how do we ensure that that information flow is in a direction that's helpful for our students. And what you'll hear me say over and over is students, because who is it about? Them. Okay? Students. That's really my philosophy. It's not about me. Is it inconvenient for me? Maybe so. But what's the ultimate goal? It's student-centered. It is about the student. So this slide really represents how information flows amongst students, but think about it one directionally. Think about it being information flowing intercollegially. How do you know what you know? Or do you know? Okay? I wish I had known that. You know, we always know when they're going to block off a parking lot, but that wasn't the most helpful information. Would have been helpful to know that last week. Okay? So it's about planning. So what do we model for our students? So informing our what was looking at how does information flow specific to mapping and onboarding and getting on that path and staying on that path. And how do you change your major? At our college, you can only change your major by going to see a counselor. What are your lines like week 1? Okay, so back to barriers, back to that road sign, forget it. I'll just keep the same major. They can't stop me from taking the classes, and they can't. But what does that mean for the college? I'm going to use a term, it jacks up your data. Okay? Your MIS data is not correct. Your scorecard is off and skewed a little bit. When they get the degree in the area in which they're not working, that doesn't go to EDD correctly. So there's a lot of reasons why they need to have the correctly declared major. If you're looking at your scorecard, some department says, well, we never have a degree. Well, that's because they never changed their major. A for us is accounting. So they're all accounting majors. That's not where they ended up. They have like one of the lowest awards there are because that was not students' majors once they realized they needed to make a change. Next slide, please. So this is our how. And so our how became those maps that lived in counseling, we sent them to our department chairs. You had a deadline. I'm also, a little more about me, I'm a department chair for nursing, so I am a nurse. And I'm also the curriculum co-chair. So when I came into curriculum, it was, what are you supposed to do with these map things? You know, I've seen them. I was a chair. So you give them to the department chair. I take them to our department chair council, hand them out. Please review and revisit these because we are going to put them into a system that becomes interactive and engaging for the students as we move through our guided pathways. This needs to be clear. Clarity. How many of you are a chair? Anybody? How long have you been a chair? Throw out some numbers.
4 years. 7 years.
4, 7, 2. Okay, so the 2-year person, I give you the maps. What are these? Who did this? This doesn't represent what we do. And so as we have chair change, we have seen that people are looking at these maps. I've never seen this before. My previous chair never brought it back to our department. It's this foreign object. That's the beauty of today. So as you work today, remember how are you going to disseminate the information? So you don't get those people, I've never seen this before. Well, you've had an opportunity. You may not have seized the opportunity. Okay? So what I had with chairs was, I've never seen this before. And then they leave. Okay, the deadline comes, the deadline goes, and I don't have any maps. So at some point, we needed to start somewhere. So we started with the maps we had. And sometimes it was painful for people to hear. Counseling has been using these for years. They update them based on your program updates. So I get that you haven't seen this and you think this is new and a novel concept. It isn't. It's new to us on the instructional side for many as faculty, but it's been used for years. Keep that in mind. And they listen. Who's the face that the students go to? The counselor. They listen to them. So we have to say we recognize your expertise and your discipline, and we want your discipline expertise. But you can't discount that this has been going on. And how can we now work collegially, because we're now trying to educate you as a faculty member about what we've been doing with these maps. And now we really are wanting your input because that is the spirit of collegiality in which we're moving into. So counseling doesn't have to bear that load. So ours became the program pathways mapper. And so I'll demo this at the end quickly. But it is interactive. So similar to what Sierra has, what we did was we had somebody that took all of these maps, uploaded them into a system, and this product is rolling out through the community college system. So administrators, if you're interested, catch me. If you're thinking you might want to explore this as a product, it is also customizable. So what you see here is not what yours would look like because these aren't your courses. So that's how the mapper works, is every college is. The layout will be similar, but you can change that as well. So quickly, just a point on the left-hand side, which you can't see, when a student goes in the top left corner box where it says CSU, the system, it does a drop down. And so they can choose which CSU they may want to go to. On the next column, it says a 2-year, and we anticipate we're going to put a 4-year in there. Again, trying to address and recognize all of our students aren't full-time. So if you are going to go part-time or want to get done in 4 years, not 10, won't be an option, 4 years, this is what your path might look like. Then when the student does a drop-down, you can see it's labeled by semester, first, second, third semester. The boxes are different colored. The colors mean something. The pinky colored ones, those are core courses for whatever major they've chosen. So I believe this is chemistry or biology. Looks like chemistry, there's some physics in there, something like that, one of the sciences. The green are GE. So if a student does the drop down and chooses the UC system, that GE might change for that major. because we've done the IGETSI and the CSU breadth. The other thing that we had to address in mapping was, I don't want to limit my student to that recommended course. So being courageous and having those conversations, counseling's been doing it. They don't like it. So faculty don't like that answer. Yeah, but they didn't ask us, and how do they know it's right? Okay, we won't take their expertise, so we'll call in your expertise. And what we've done is we've allowed faculty to choose about 5 different options. So let's say in the critical thinking, you can see there's not a course there. It just says critical thinking. When a student clicks on that box, and you can go to bakersfieldcollege.edu and play with it. It's phone friendly, supposedly, last update it was. And so you click Program Mapper, and then when you click on this box, it's going to give a drop down of all of our transfer critical courses in the critical thinking area. So we've not limited. If it's a list of 20, we say, choose the top 5. Back to students don't want to go through all that. That first road sign. There's too many things to choose. I can't choose. I'm going to choose something else. So being mindful of the student voice. That's what our students have said. Next slide, please. So what is your why? Next slide. What is your what? Next slide. And what is your how? Okay? Because that is how it feels. And I give you just maybe a couple of minutes to kind of think about your what, your why, and your how. And then I think I'm almost done. And as you wrap up your what, your why, and your how, think about it throughout the day. Post this in your office. Know that it can change. Because it can change in terms of you may have come across a barrier or a student that has told you something that has really shifted your why. Okay? It's shifted how you're going to tackle that problem. And I was at a retreat yesterday, and we were talking about sometimes with guided pathways, faculty are saying, I'm in the trenches. I'm not on one of those teams. I don't really have time to be on one of those teams. I get pathways. I agree with the philosophy. I'm teaching an overload. I got a lot of work to do. What can I do in the classroom? That becomes your why. And now you have to figure out your how, because your why is you want to help your students. So what I tell people, I teach 2 classes as well, and I do a lot of open, come tell me what your problems are. You really seem I've got a class of 60, so I don't know all their names, but you seem to be a little bit off today. Is something going on? You came in late, you usually don't. I touch them, I grab them, but, come tell me a couple of things. And when students know that you take that interest, then the next thing you know more than you ever wanted to know. But you also have an opportunity to help them. They'll stop me in Target and say, do you remember me? I don't remember your name. I remember your face. You were, and I usually can pull that thing out of the air. And the student is, yes. Well, what are you doing now? I have a student that I called my Costco girl. I have no idea what her name is. But she's my Costco girl, because every time I went to get gas at Costco, she'd be there and we'd talk. And we would ed plan while I'm pumping gas. She graduated from the nursing program this semester. My Costco girl. And I always say, oh my, and she just laughs when I call her my Costco girl. I still don't know what her name is. But she knows she's my Costco girl. I owned her. She was my Costco girl. And she knew that when I came through Costco, I've been holding all my questions. And we would ed plan, I couldn't get into this class. What should I do? Over the gas pump. That's how I could make a difference. You touch just one, and you make a difference for all. Okay, so keep that in mind, that it is an individual journey as well as a collective journey as we work with our students and choose to make a difference for them. Next slide. So what we learned, which kind of have led to effective practices. I learned to be patient. I'm one of those people, oh yeah, pathways make sense, let's do it. I had a 3-year plan on a plane ride back from a training. And somebody looked at me and said, really? How are you? I can do this. And I learned it's not just me to push that big old rock. So I had to reframe, how do I create a team? How do I stay involved? How do I get other people? How do I woo my naysayers? I took that on as that's part of my responsibility because I was already 3 years out. I don't understand why we need to talk about this anymore. That's my personality. I learned a lot of patience. I also worked with a lot of my deans that learned patience in that, why are we doing this again? Why are we revisiting X? We actually got through what you might be calling interest groups, meta majors. We call them learning and career pathways. We got through that pretty quickly. Well, part of it was because I was already there and I already developed it and I already structured it. So somebody goes, just present it and see what happens. Lo and behold, when we presented it at an institute, I talked about, this was my brainchild. I just took the catalog and just started doing things and dumping it. I have class of 60, showed it to those 60. What do you think? Looks pretty decent. And faculty were like, everything seems to fit. Like 2 programs wanted to jump ship. And I call it divorce and go to another loving family. So that was pretty painless for us. But what we took a lot more time in is the mapping piece. So I've learned a lot of patience. As a college, we've learned to be patient. We've also learned to be data literate. I'm not a geek. I know how to read it. I know where to find it, and I know a geek. So I can find something, take this to somebody, this is what I'm thinking it says, and we have a conversation. And that really helps me be comfortable and realize I don't have to know everything. I know a lot about a lot, but I don't know everything. And I am the first to tell you, my favorite phrase, excuse my French, is beats the hell out of me. But I'll go find it for you because I'm resourceful. So use that as a characteristic. Be data literate. We should make data-informed decisions. Not I think, not I heard. What does the data say? And at some point, we have to trust the data because there is that piece too. Well, I don't know where they got this from, but they didn't talk to that one person. Okay? So we have to look at our sources and be comfortable with what we're seeing and then decide what am I going to do with this? Be flexible. I'm very flexible, but we are going to run across people who are not as colleagues. So how do you have the next one be courageous with those courageous conversations? How do you start that conversation with, you seem to not really be on board with where we're going in the department? How do you do what I call people on it? Because if you don't, it's going to fester. And they may not be a person that's going to go get a group of people and cluster and, become mean girls or mean guys or mean people. They may not be doing that, but also you recognize their strengths and the value they can bring. And you're like, but you could be so good at X. Help me understand what's your reservation. And have that courageous conversation about how can we work through it or how do we agree to disagree. And then every time you see them, you needle them and say, you're really good at this. I really think this should be yours. I'm saving you a spot. Okay. So that courageous conversation, and that also means I'm not 100% sure about your environment, but in our college, our president basically gives you a task and says, do it. You can fail, but you need to do it. You need to do it again. and you need to do it. And that's the guidance that you get. That's the guidance you receive. So you can figure out how to do it. You can access your resources. You can get assistance. If you need her help, she will help you. But it's really, you do as you see fit. So basically, I say whatever I want to say. I might get, you probably could have rephrased that a little differently. Not. It needed to be said that way. And we're okay with that. So sometimes a courageous conversation is interdisciplinary. It's a level up. And it's engaging your classified. Classified need to be empowered to be able to have their courageous conversations and to be able to speak open and freely. And I do know that that doesn't exist in every college. I'm hoping that exists here because that's really what helps the work move forward and faculty, classified, students to feel supported. And the last one is listen. You have to listen. And that means I couldn't find another B to go with listen. And it was, I really wanted listen to the student voice. And then as I thought about that, we also need to listen to each other. I need to listen to what the counselors say. I need to listen to what other faculty say. I need to listen to what my students say. I need to listen to administration as well. So that listening skill, it's not just one directional, it's multi-directional. I think this is one more slide. This is my last one. So our ultimate goal looks like this on the road. Many different interpretations, but here I see interdisciplinary, collegial work groups. I see all of us working together. I see the assessment cycle. I see us trying something. It didn't quite work. We're going to try it again, and it never ends. I also see guided pathways. It never ends, okay? Because it's always about student-centered. And if we keep it student-centered, it shouldn't end because our students will change. Therefore, we have to change and evolve. And I think that's been the painful growth, is that many of us as colleges have been stagnant. We didn't change with our changing students. And we didn't realize that our students didn't want to be who we were. And as we have changed, for some people, that's been painful. Why are we doing this new thing? I know people that retired rather than change. That makes me sad. So I'm hoping that we're all in growth mindsets. We want to do what's best for our students. We're willing to do what it takes to ensure that our students reach their goals. And their goal might be just to get a job. And that's okay. Last slide. Thank you.